Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the St. Mary's County 457B Governance Committee. Today, Thursday, August 26, 3 o'clock. First, I'd like to call to order. I am Jeanette Cudmore, Chief Financial Officer and the acting chair today.
Chris Castellamus, Director of Economic Development. I think I'm an employee representative.
Catherine Pratson, Director of Human Resources, and I'm the Plan Administrator.
And Redstadt, I'm a county representative.
Marvin Butler, I'm the Chief of Staff, St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office.
All right, thank you, everybody. First, I'd like to get an approval for the, approval for the day's agenda.
So moved.
Seconded.
I have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. Now we need an approval for the May 20th, 2021 meeting minutes. Please take your time and review them, and then I'll take a motion when ready.
I'll move approval of the minutes.
I second it.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we have new business. We have the second quarter plan performance from Sarala Kata. Am I saying that correctly? At Voya.
Sarla.
Welcome. Sarah?
Sarla.
Sarla. Welcome, and we're ready for you.
Everyone.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. There you go. Can you see my screen okay now?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much for inviting me to your meeting today. I hope you're all doing well. What I'd like to do is just provide you with a snapshot of the plan, and then I'll walk you through how your employees are engaging with the benefit, and then provide you with an update on some of our recent enhancements. And certainly at any time, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. And just as a reminder, this is the team that's supporting your plan on a daily basis. And to the far right is Marta. I like to refer to her as the rock star. She's the one that's meeting with your employees, speaking with them, helping them feel more confident as they plan for their financial future. So with that, I will walk you through the most recent one-year period ending June 30th. So if you look at the far right-hand column, I'll walk you through that, and I'll certainly point out some highlights. And you'll see at the beginning of the period, we had about 14 million in assets under management. And there were about 1.1 million that was added to the plan through payroll deferrals. And 97% of those deferrals are being made on a pre-tax basis. It's also important to note that there is an increase compared to the previous one-year period of about 3%. So that's, about 21%, excuse me, compared to the same time period a year ago. Distributions were down. Other activity is a combination of dividends, asset transfers, revenue credit, fees, etc., and they were basically on par. We also had significant appreciation of about 2.7 million. So we ended the period with 18 million, which represents about a 30% increase from the beginning of the period. So when we look at contributions, assets, distributions, they're all headed in the right direction. Now we'll take a look at additional demographics. We had 18 new accounts that were added during this period, and that number is certainly much lower than the previous time period, but it's really a result of the environment. We had 7 individuals that separated from service and took their money out of the plan. We ended the period with 341 participants. So again, as a reminder, when we talk about participants, that includes active employees as well as individuals that have separated from service. So of that number, of the 341, we have 77 participants or former employees that chose to leave their money within the plan. And of that, 14 have less than $5,000 in their account. If you look down at the bottom grid, you'll see that the average account balance is up. It's much higher than the benchmark. When we look at the benchmark, it's all of Voya's government plans. And then the average deferral amount is significantly higher. It's almost double the amount for that same time period a year ago. And just in speaking with Marta, she mentioned to me that as she's meeting with employees, she's hearing from participants about how they want to focus more on retirement planning, so they have a secure retirement, which is resulting in participants increasing their contributions. And then the average number of investment options being held by a participant is 1.6 versus the benchmark. And again, we're using the target date funds, so you expect that number to be less than the benchmark. And here we'll take a look at how the assets as well as contributions are being invested by category. And you'll see here that majority of the assets are in the target date funds, as well as that's where the contributions are being invested. And we typically see a high utilization rate of target date funds when that is the default fund. And the feedback that Marta's hearing from participants is they like the philosophy of the target date funds. So you have 288 participants that are utilizing one fund, and 99% of those are in the funds are the target date funds, which makes sense because they're fully diversified mutual funds. And then we'll look at a breakdown here, shows us the percentage of assets by fund. Now we'll switch gears a little bit. We'll take a look at how your employees are engaging with the plan. We have 64% of the participants are engaging through the participant website, mobile app, and our customer call center, which is absolutely phenomenal. And then 57% are engaging digitally. Okay. So when you have employees or participants that are engaging digitally, we found that their savings rates tend to be higher than those that are not. So I may have mentioned this the last time that we spoke, but I think it's definitely worth repeating the information. You have a high percentage of participants that are signed up for e-delivery, and that means that they have elected to receive electronic communications, and that also helps us when we're communicating with them. We can leverage some of the personalized journeys they receive to help them engage with the plan even more. And then you also, when we look at the web registration, that's a very high number as well. So I think this is probably some of the highest numbers that I've seen, certainly higher than all of our government plans when we're looking at. So I think kudos to you, that the message is getting to your employees and they're taking action. And then if you look at the below chart, it just breaks down how employees are engaging by age group. In all age groups, they're accessing the participant website. The younger population they're not using the call center as much, which is what we expect. And then if you look at the older population, you'll see that they're utilizing the call center a little bit more. So I think some of the goals that I'd like to put in place is getting to that 100% for e-delivery and web registration. That will definitely benefit your plan participants.
So I have a question. Why don't those numbers add up to 100% within each age group?
Let me see. Zane, that's an excellent question. Let me take that back and I'll get an answer. I'll make myself a note. Any other questions?
I have a question. This is Chris again. I think we talked about this once before, but I'm interested in fund performance. So we know where people are putting their money, but we don't know how each of these funds are doing. So for example, the Target Date Retirement Fund, 2025, how did that perform for the year? And how does each fund that our employees are investing in, what kind of returns are those seeing, and then how does that compare to the market in general? We had this discussion, I think,
Okay.
at the previous meeting.
we did.
There's really nothing here about performance.
I will follow up with the fund performance, and then going forward, I will include that as part of this summary.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
I did have a couple questions. Just in general, I know that anytime we get a new employee in my department, I always try to mentor them and talk to them about the Voya plan. Are we doing enough to inform new employees the opportunity to get into this program?
So what we're doing today is working with Cindy to send out information, email blast about the plan. We recently created a brain chart that provides an overview of the plan. And so for those individuals that would like to enroll on their own, their directions are included. At the same token, their MARTA's information is included as part of that brain chart presentation. But we can certainly, and we're more than happy to, if we're able to get the contact information for all of the new hires, is proactively contact them.
Okay.
Or
I just think it's important. I think, especially when they're in their 20s or even early 30s, if they get into the plan early,
Right.
and if they stay within the county until they retire, it sets them up very well later on.
I agree, and certainly we'd be happy to, at any time, set up a presentation where we can go through the benefit with your new hires or just your employees in general.
And
And
Zane,
then follow that up with one-on-one appointments.
and if I may jump in, this is Catherine. We also introduced the plan in orientation.
Right.
And individuals are given that information in orientation. So I just went back to look at the number of participants. So we have 341 participants. We have about 850 employees. So that just gives you a percentage of how many are involved in the plan. Now, although the 850, 60-something of them were hired after this reporting period.
Right. So maybe we'll see an increase at the next quarter.
Right. So, but always
And
looking
Catherine-
for ways to promote the plan. And I know that in the Friday Fitbit that Cindy sends out every week, there's always Voya information. MARTA is available, at any time, but if any of you think of ways that we can, more successfully promote it or continue to promote it, please let us know.
Do we have a wellness day this year?
We have a wellness week.
A wellness week?
A wellness week.
There you go.
Yes, and Voya has a big part of the wellness week, yes. So.
That's awesome.
And we're always open to different ideas. So if you think of something that you would like us to consider, we'd be more than happy to.
Thank you.
And the next slide is just a summary of the types of actions that participants are taking as a result of their engagement. So for those that use the participant website, we saw that 61 participants made a change to their deferral amount. And then we had a high number that used the mobile app as well that made a change to their deferral amount. And I think it is helpful with the communications that Cindy's sending out on a regular basis that that helps promote the plan and the tools and resources. And then we also have employees utilizing the tools, the call center, et cetera. We had 60 participants that utilized either My Orange Money tool or Personal Financial Dashboard, contacted the customer service center, and as a result, we had 26 individuals take action, with 20 increasing their contributions. So that's about 43% took action.
Good.
So in addition to the online, the digital engagement, employees are also engaging with MARTA. So far, she's engaged with 306 participants through calls, virtual appointments for a short period of time. MARTA had resumed on-site visits, and she said those were pretty successful. The topics that are important to your employees, they're talking about their account reviews, beneficiaries, and their options at retirement. MARTA continues to be proactive, contacting participants to set up an individual appointment. And then we're utilizing the email communications as well as the newsletters. So thank you to Catherine and her team for partnering with us on that. And as always, we have resources, et cetera, that are always available to participants. Just as a reminder. We've recently made some enhancements. We've introduced text nudging, and I'll cover that in just a moment. But enhancements to the participant website, we've changed the look of it, making it more intuitive, easier to use. We've added a personal digital assistant. So as participants are on the website, if they have a question, they can just type their question into that chat box, and a customer service representative responds to the individual's questions. So it is a personalized message as opposed to a bot responding. And then enhancements to the plan sponsor website, which include making it easier to navigate, having access to key data immediately. So we expanded our outreach to include text nudging, which really complements the personalized journeys that participants are eligible to receive if they've provided their email address. And then it's based on certain criteria. So participants will need to opt in to the text nudging. So when they log into their account, they'll have the option to sign up for text to receive text messages. And for those that opt in, there are one of 3 messages that they may receive. If they don't have a beneficiary on file, they'll receive a message about the importance of reviewing and updating their beneficiary. Or perhaps if a participant has not changed their deferral amount in 6 months, they'll receive a text message to save more. So you've probably seen something very similar. A lot of doctors' offices are using text messaging, or if you've done some online shopping, there's text messages just as a follow-up to give you a status of your account, of your order. Similar concept, just another way to make it easier for employees or participants to engage with this benefit. And here's just a sample of the types of messages that a participant would receive should they opt into receiving text messages. And that is it.
Well, thank you for that nice presentation. Are there any questions?
I did have one more question. You said at the beginning that the great majority of the contributions were pre-tax. I'm just curious, why aren't they all pre-tax?
You have the option of saving on a ROC basis as well.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? All righty. With this, can I get a motion to accept the second quarter report from Voya?
Motion.
Second. Chris?
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Aye.
carries.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. So now we have
Thank you.
Now we have some old business from Catherine Pradson on alternate employee deferral options.
Well, thank you, Jeanette. You may recall at the last meeting, we talked about offering employees the option to defer via a percentage deferral in addition to a cash deferral. And we have worked with Voya, and that is in the plan.
Wonderful.
So that is effective. We are updating material for employees. We're updating the orientation material. So for those currently involved in the plan, you don't need to do anything.
Okay.
But you certainly could go in and make the change if you wish. And then it really is going to be targeted toward new enrollees. And the preference would be to enroll via a percentage, because then each time your salary changes, your contribution changes, and yet you don't have to do anything. So the employee, it's a passive, increase.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
No, that is a great idea.
Yep. So that offers them the option, and we were able to do that. And if I may, could I just ask everybody to jump back to the second quarter item, because there's a couple of documents in there, the fiduciary guide
Yes.
and the government guide. I asked Sarla to provide that to us. I have not had a chance to look at them, but wanted to include that for all the board members. And what I'd like to do is review them and go over them next month, or the next meeting, rather.
Okay.
And just as a reminder, we are fiduciaries of the plan. We're all covered with fiduciary insurance. The plan is set up in accordance with their ERISA regulations, although it's not required because we are a government entity.
Right.
But we follow that as a best practice. But this is just a guide, and I think it speaks a little bit, Chris, to what you're asking about the performance. So Voya is the record keeper for the plan. They're not the investment manager. And so we don't have an investment manager.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's something that the board, needs to consider. So, for example, when Voya showed us the investment performance the last time, there's an item that they would have, if it were their plan, they would have put on a watch list.
Right.
What do we do with that? And is the board going to be empowered to recommend investment changes? Do we want a consultant to recommend investment changes for us? I know that Jeanette and I, some of the other boards that we're on, we have a consultant that manages that.
Right.
So,
Would that need a change to our plan to allow that?
no, it wouldn't need a change to the plan, but certainly we would have to figure out how to pay for that.
Right.
You know, what we, if we feel that it's necessary, if the board thinks that it's necessary, I think we would bring it before the commissioners, you know, and discuss that. But I thought these fiduciary guides might be a first step.
Right.
And again, I haven't read them, but I just want to read and understand what that responsibility is. And then just to remind everybody, when we selected Voya, we used Bolton, and we had a consultant in that process,
Right.
and they helped us select the investments. And that was a big part of the process. And I think the investment lineup is very robust, and it's done very well. But we haven't been nobody's looking at it,
Right.
you know, in case there needs to be a change.
Right. Okay.
So, and I don't know if it would involve an RFP. You know, we would have to look and see. I don't know what the expense of something like that would be.
Okay.
So more to come, but I think that's a little bit, I know Voya can give us that data, and they will. I think they shy away from it a little bit because we have not hired them to do that.
Right.
Right, but like you said, it's our responsibility to make sure that we have options for the employees that are investing in something that's returning well.
And if we're aware of something that, you know, needs to be substituted or changed, you know, we have that responsibility as well.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. And an investment policy statement is usually the first step
Right.
for a board. And I have asked if Voya has a sample, and you may remember we talked about it at our last meeting, and they also don't like to provide samples because they're so different for each different entity.
Right.
I think that's something that certainly we could do with Mary Claire.
Right.
We could do with some of our other consultants.
Might be able to provide some guidance.
Right, so the committee's maturing and our oversight of the plan is maturing, so I think these are really logical next steps,
Sure.
you know, for all of us to consider. So,
Okay. Well, I think it's good for all of the, board members that we should be reading these fiduciary agreements, the documents that are on the site, to understand our role, and then be ready for the next meeting to discuss
thank
it.
you. Yeah, and I'll put it as an agenda item.
Yes.
And then, perhaps do a little inquiry with some of our current consultants about sample investment policy statements, about
Right.
recommended next steps. I believe one of these documents even has a checklist in it,
Okay.
Great.
so that can just help guide us as a.
And there also might be some other local jurisdictions that may have something in place, too.
Right.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll do that as well. So anyway, thank you for that. I digress, but I think that's what I'm hearing,
Right.
where we need to head.
We're wanting more information.
Right.
And
Yeah.
to understand better our responsibility. Okay. Any other comments before we go on to the committee reports? Okay. Tracy?
There's no new business to report, Jeanette.
No new business.
Nope,
You haven't spent any money at all?
not yet.
Darn. All righty. Well, we don't have a report to...
Well, that was
to-
easy.
I know. All right. Are there any comments from any of the board members prior to us adjourning?
I do have one other item, if I may.
Oh, please, Catherine.
I looked at the calendar, and we probably, I didn't even think of it till today, we probably should propose a calendar for next year.
Oh, for the year.
Because we need to let Sherry know, because this room fills up. Because our next meeting isn't until November of this year.
Right.
So if the board is satisfied with meeting quarterly, what we're currently doing is meeting on the fourth Thursday, and the pattern is February, May, August, and November. And if the board is willing to consider, repeating that, I would like a motion, that would be great. And the only exception to the fourth Thursday is in November because of Thanksgiving.
Right.
And it's usually the third Thursday.
All right. Well, can I get a motion from the board to propose the agenda as presented from Catherine?
The 2022
Yes,
calendar?
I propose we do that, yes. Motion.
Do I have a
I second.
second? Is that Marvin?
Yes.
All right, I have a first and a second. All
Yes,
in
I
favor?
second. Sorry.
Thank you.
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
And what I'll do, thank you, and what I'll do for the board is we'll send it, that in writing,
Okay,
so everybody can update their calendars.
sounds great. Anything else, Catherine?
I don't.
You sure?
Positive.
All right, thank
Are you sure, Catherine?
One more time. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
I got a first and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.